I've heard this mostly from mechanics. They'll say, if you like cars, don't make it your job. Because when I was in high school, terrible book. Guy does not know how to structure
philosophy.
See, this is why I feel so extremely lucky to have gained consciousness when I was 14 to go I just want to do whatever I want to do with cars. And that moment was to feel good in the present. And his first thought was well, why don't you just do drugs and be very hedonistic? And that genuinely made me think we're not just surviving as human beings, but living as people.
I think that's fair, and I think way too many people at tech kind of don't appear to be real human beings.
Oh yeah, it's very true.
I don't know.
I think the metal is corroding because of the salt. Anyways, I'll just be keeping this here for something with my hands to fidget on. It definitely doesn't look like never mind. Anyways, so we were talking?
We were talking. Well, welcome to our first episode of a rerun of our Great Conversations podcast.
Oh, so there was someone else before me?
Okay, so history. Last 1 year ago, we tried to record it, but without a professional mic setup, and we tried to reach out to Campus Resources, and they had a really depressing studio. So kind of my idea with the series is that we actually have more interesting spaces, right? Because the entire thing is
I see. Okay.
This is supposed to be the meaning series, right? So this is a stupid name. What do I mean by that? I think there's so much meaning to be had in the world, so much things that I personally find meaningful, that you personally find meaningful, that people find meaningful. And every time I hear about someone talking about their passion, I feel hey, I now perceive the world as a more meaningful place. And I think that's a good thing.
Sure, you think that's a good thing. I think my first question is why do you want it though? Why? It's not necessarily because it sounds like you are attracted to meaning, and it sounds like you like meaning. But I guess why do you like meaning? And then there's a whole definition of meaning, but that's ancillary. It sounds like we sort of have a feeling. We know what meaning is. We don't really have to define it. I'm asking you, why do you like meaning? Why do you want meaning?
That is actually quite funny because I do not know yet. One thing that kind of shocked me. I'm currently taking a class in psychology. Psych 3803, How to Think with Darby. I forgot his last name, but he always goes by Darby. And one point that we brought up is that meaning is kind of arbitrary and useless. For some reason, I feel meaning is the most important thing in my life, but then again, I do not know why. Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess to start off, Brad.
Yeah.
I picked up this guy in Japanese class. We randomly ran into each other in Japanese.
No. You walked up to me with the flyer in your hand going you should come. And I was I guess
fair,
I met someone new.
Yeah. So I guess, Brad, who are you? What do you perceive as meaningful in life? What do you want to do with life? Yeah.
Well, okay, so some background to me. I grew up in Georgia all my life. I lived off 575 in the Holly Springs area. My mom's from New Jersey, my dad's from Mexico. Throughout high school, I sort of just got smarter and smarter, taking some classes. My mom has a PhD in math, so she was a big motivator for me throughout high school. And it's also really nice to go home and basically have free private tutoring all the time. And that's sort of the reason that's how I got into Georgia Tech. That's how I did so well in high school, and that's why I'm here. Or I should say, actually, that's how I got here. The reason why I'm here in the first place and trying to study engineering is because early on in high school, I sort of realized, actually, I'll say this, about meaning, right? I think many people, sorry to bring out the salt shaker again, but I gotta have something to fidget with. I think I've noticed a lot of people, especially on the internet, it's very easy to find someone on TikTok sort of scrolling through shorts or something, and then it's some late 20, early 30-year-old going I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And they finally notice that they're in a rut, and they're just going to work to then eat, to then sleep, to then just go to work the next day. I am extremely lucky to have in high school found my identity, and my identity was, I don't want to just say cars. It was a lot of cars. Cars is where I found a lot of joy out of. But it's the idea of building something. I think a lot of people tend to be creative because they're creative with art. They're creative with music writing or music playing, or with maybe drawing or painting or something like that. I think it's less apparent that creativity can also be creation. So when I first came to Georgia Tech, my first notion of what I wanted to do in life was okay, I first need to survive. I need to get money. So maybe I can use my joy, what I want, to delve into some automotive company, such that I can hang out with the stuff that I like, but also build something not invent, but design a new car. the reason why, and that's not optional. I'm sort of forced to do that because of the economy we live in, because of the society we live in. I have to work in order to get money, in order to live. If I did have to do that, right? So like my core mentality of like what I would actually do, of a true expression, maybe that's the term for it, is like, there's a character Leo from Percy Jackson, and all he does is like build stuff. And I have so many ideas for projects. Like I have been mentioning to the motorcycle club, like, guys, what if you could take a bicycle and you could beef up the tires and you could put a gas engine in the middle and that powers the rear wheel, and then you could put an electric motor as a hub for the front wheel, and then you would have a bicycle that has two power sources on it. It has the quietness of an e-bike and the speeds of an e-bike, but also the speed of a gas motor, such that it could go to like maybe 45 miles an hour. But it's also compact, it's a bicycle, so you could take this bicycle, put it on, use the e-bike mode, I guess, to go to a nearest MARTA station, take MARTA to the closest station where your destination is, and then either use the e-bike mode or the gas engine to be on sidewalks or the roads. And so it's like, it seems to me this very niche way to utilize public transit, and like, it would, like, the total cost of it would be like only $1,000. So it would be utilizing public transit with a cheap vehicle that doesn't involve a lot of driving. Because the options are like, you get a motorcycle, you get a car, or you only take MARTA. And this seems to be the best of both worlds. But like, I'm using that as like one example of a project. My other project would be like, can I take a canoe and put paddle wheels on the side so that I can also use it, so that I can swap out the paddle wheels and have bicycle wheels, such that I don't have to carry a canoe. I can use it as a tricycle, and then when I'm in the water, I can paddle it with the same bike mechanism. So going on to the topic of the conversation, like meaning, Chris McCandless said something very, I guess, very profound, not to be redundant and say meaningful, but very profound to me, which he said something along the lines of, like, I'm trying to get it right, I might be paraphrasing here, but it's like, you are a fool to think that the only happiness or joy you can get out of life is from the relationships you have with people. So meaning doesn't have to come from the relationships and like a sense of love that's purely with other people. I remember one great meeting, I guess, we had, where the older gentleman, he presented like the 3 ideas of love that Plato originally created. And there's like a world, a familial, and then a romantic, or like a friendship. I think meaning first generates in our soul. It's something personal. Meaning is not something that is defined by an outside force like other people or society at large or objects that exist in the external world, but it's a feeling inside of you that goes like, I want. And it's separate from survival and going like, I want food because I'm going to die, or I want money because I'm greedy. It's more like, gosh, how do I put a word to it?
It's kind of arbitrary, is it not?
Is it? Well, like, hold on. It's almost like I want to be something. It's like I want to take myself and make something more of myself that's not just an animal that eats and sleeps all the time.
So what is that something? I mean, if we now think about animals, everything that like the animal wants to be, as we've discussed, kind of like, or at least in the most basic sense. Obviously, there's some animals that have more complex social structures that might have. I do not know if animals have ambitions. I'm not that into biology.
Missions? You said
ambitions.
Emissions? I don't think animals have emissions except for cows.
No,
they have
ambitions.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So like, but what is that something that you want to be? Is it just, so it's probably not just something in a social structure, right, as you mentioned, but it's like this kind of like identity that we cloak ourselves in.
I mean, it could be. You could let it be defined by society. Like, often people get a sense of pride or meaning from, like, say, being a doctor or a lawyer, because then, right, there's an inward and then there's an outward view of that meaning or that value, which is like, all these people depend on me, these people look up to me, I need to help people because I am a doctor, I need to defend my company or defend these people because I am a lawyer. Or it can be like, I worked X amount of years to become a doctor, and I know my craft, and I understand what I do, and I can take pride in myself.
So is that like more like pride in your accomplishments or pride to what you provide to society?
Yeah.
Fair. I mean, one thing that we kind of discussed in like leading up to this talk is how being just the world has gotten so interconnected and so complex that wouldn't theoretically function without you, right? Like if you're, I don't know, if you're in a very small medieval town, maybe if you don't become a doctor, the town doesn't have a doctor, right? So it's like very easy to find a role that is fulfilling because of the like scarcity of resources. You're so vital.
And actually, the reason why you're bringing up a conversation that you and I had before over text, my point with that was not necessarily there literally exists less things in the world. It's more like there exists your capability to freedom from then compared to modern life is much, much smaller.
You want to expand on that?
Yeah, I'm trying to, which is like, it's not because of, if you were born in a medieval town, you wouldn't be able to travel to Florida or to New York or to California like some people in our group do. You basically live in a town. There's like 40 people you know. You go to church on Sunday. There's a king, and you have to give up some portion of your food as tax for. And every now and then, some grand activity will happen, like someone will get hanged, or there'll be like some battle, and the king
some
comes
jousting
through. And no, well, not even that. It's more like an event. Like I'm thinking of like a world event that would happen like in a video game, where like I don't know. There's a game called Kingdoms and Castles where sometimes you get raided by Viking forces. If anyone knows that game, niche game, whatever, go check it out on Steam. I think it's like $15. But like in that same sense, the king might come through and say like, "Hey, we're having a war with this neighboring faction. I need you guys." So there wasn't as much you were able to do in the world that you lived in that was not tilling your farm, simple labor, going to church, a little bit of spiritual purpose through God, and understanding the scope of your world, which is your town, and then possibly maybe your form of government, which is like that guy over there that tells you what to do because he was ordained by God. And nowadays, you can live such like there exists so many different ways for a person to be born and then live a life, right? In the United States alone, I think the United States like has is like top 5 in like economic inequality. So, and that has to do with a lot of like really bad public policy that happened like after the Civil War Reconstruction era. But basically from some of those things, like depending on where you're born, like your zip code, what the color of your skin is, or where your parents came from, your life could look like this, or it could look like that. Like I know people from the Alpharetta area that lived in like 3-car garages, and their parents were both like engineers or very talented musicians, or some other like 6-figure salary job. So there's like this domino effect where like it's very likely that they'll have a sibling because their family can afford it. It's very likely that as a child they'll have like a lot of toys. So like not to say they'd be spoiled, but they'd be accustomed to like having a consistent joy through their life. And then it's likelier that they'll get like, because of their financial situation, they'll have opportunities for like, say, tutoring, which means that they'll be able to get into a nicer school and then college, and then like it becomes like an expectation that like they live that life. Or a recession happens and their house, and they lose everything and they're like out on the streets. And then you might look at someone who comes from a poor socioeconomic background, like rural Georgia, and they have to have like special programs in order to get a college board to offer AP programs there, and other programs to like take that kid and like help him to go to like not summer school, but like summer camp that's like STEM oriented, so that they can like so that they can then flourish as a teenager, so they can have a better future in life. But to both of those people, the scope of that world is still larger than their socioeconomic background, because with the volatility of our economic system, and where we can have boom or bust in different sectors of industry, finance to the fracking oil, I don't know, events that happened 10 years ago, the world can change drastically compared to like just a medieval guy who just tills his farm for 60 years, probably not even 60 years, probably until 40 years, and then he just dies.
Yeah.
So both of these examples that I came up with, both of them still know about other places like Africa or China or Australia. Both of those people might have the opportunity to go to some of those places or might lose it. And from that, because back in medieval times you only had certain activities that you could go to, your choices from where you gather meaning was much smaller compared to today. That's the salt shaker again. Compared to today. You could have meaning from supporting your family with your farm. You could have meaning by being a good servant of God. Or you could have meaning from being like a knight for your king, I guess. Nowadays, I'm struggling to think of the term. It's like the problem of choice, or like too many choices.
Yeah. No, I mean,
what is it called?
I forgot, but
you also forgot.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
but that's the thing where like you're overwhelmed by so many
it's
choices.
basically like it was something we did in behavioral economics last semester. It's basically like if you go into an option and you want to buy the best, I don't know, shampoo, and you're presented with 5 options. Your choice of your chances of finding the best shampoo among these is a lot higher than finding the best option among like 300 shampoos if you go on Amazon or something.
Like even randomly versus an educated guess, it's still true.
Yeah.
So when you're presented for so many different ways that your life could go, rather than just like working on a farm and being a knight, then I feel this. I can't prove this. I don't know. I don't have any source to back me up on this, but like I only know this anecdotally from like witnessing fellow high school students. Like you just get so overwhelmed with so many like events that happen in the world, and so many paths that you see other people have taken through life, that you just end up not knowing what's like the correct or what's the right way to go about living your life. And I think some people get stuck like constantly asking themselves like, not just am I happy, but like, am I doing it right? And I think that's often asked with, am I happy? Is this the right way that I'm doing my life? And am I happy doing that? And it's very easy to say no to that because you see so many other people living a different life. Whereas in medieval times, you wouldn't have ever saw that. Everyone was working on a farm.
Yeah, I guess, I mean,
that was my point in texting you.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that argument. I mean, you also kind of have like less of a, I guess, some kind of, you do have some locus of control, but you never feel like you're in total control of the situation.
Yeah,
I
so
feel like,
through technology, through progression of society, like humans, what is it called? Something will, self-will, what's that term?
Self-determination?
No, free will.
Free will.
Free will has not changed, right? That guy could have not worked on a farm and died on his own will, but the amount of things that you could do with that will has drastically increased.
Yeah, and I mean, what did I want to say? I feel like in the past, it was very easy to be like the best in like your craft locally, for example.
Yeah.
You could like account for every single aspect. Like, I don't know, sometimes my dad tells, oh, my grandmother, she knew exactly what kind of herb would go against what kind of sickness, and says there's this kind of a lost art. And so it feels like in the past, even in the more like, I don't know, a few centuries ago, you could at least like control the local level of expertise. But we're now, because like now, not just, I guess, things you can do, but also knowledge is spreading so exponentially across the entire globe. It's just almost impossible to fully keep up with. And I think a lot of people find that sad, but I think it's also exciting because it's like, imagine, when you feel like when you're playing an open world video game, you feel like, okay, I've now kind of exhausted everything that is new. There's nothing that really, I don't know, at least I feel that. I feel like I always want to completely exhaust the novelty, but then I get disappointed when it's exhausted. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of exciting that the world is so ever expanding. And yeah, one question that kind of leads me into this, now that you cannot find that much meaning out of like your local job anymore, where should you find meaning? What kind of like stuff should you seek out? One kind of thought I had coming into this is like, what do people do? They work on something to get money, and then they spend that money on something they maybe find meaningful. For a lot of people, that's purely like subsistence and keeping their family healthy, stable, educated, whatnot. So I guess, besides subsistence, what should we spend money on? What should we do with our time? And I know that that's different for everyone else.
What I always heard is that people, it's not luxury. It's not. There's a term for like relaxation.
Just going on holiday.
No, it's not holiday. Crap. I forgot this word. But what I heard was that like when people started going away from,
Leisure?
Yes,
Leisure.
thank you. When white collar work started to take over from the transition from agricultural economy to an industrial economy, when people were going into factories and doing blue collar labor, and then also transitioning from blue collar labor to white collar labor, the idea was still like, okay, I dedicate 8 hours of my life to work, I'm going to dedicate the other 8 hours to leisure instead. Like that's where we started. That's where civilization developed into, I work, like this is when I work, this is what I do for work, and this is what I do for leisure. It wasn't as much of, in like an agricultural economy, like I'm thinking like, not just hunter-gatherers, but like the step above that, like I'm thinking like Mesoamerican civilizations, like they might farm all the time. Like you have to consistently tend to a farm, and then with your community, you would have gatherings or festivals or smaller activities that still represent that sense of community. Nowadays, it's a little bit more like, as an American, I think I'm subconsciously trained to be like very individualist by like the heritage of the nation. So I think that's the reason why I'm going to say like people don't often think about a community. They think about what I'm going to do. It's always about me. It's always about I dedicate my time to work at this place with this company or at this job. And then what I want to do is this stuff. And like you're right to say that I work such that I can obtain subsistence. To not only for survival for myself, but also for my family. But like I think of it like the amount of time it takes to like provide sustenance for my family, and it's minuscule to the amount of time that you have left over from work. Or maybe it's not. Maybe there are some people, like I think of some people like upper management positions that are like completely swamped with work and they have like no time for the kids. But for someone who's like working a desk job at like a library or a school, like they usually put in their 8 hours and then they go home. And what does subsistence mean? It means like taking the 5 minutes to pay a bill on time, or it means going to the grocery store and buying food for like an hour. And that's a weekly job. So like you can't even look at that like on a per day basis. I disagree with you that like we spend our time outside of work on doing activities that are for sustenance. They're much more for leisure. It's more, what often happens after someone gets out of work is they go, I'm going to watch a movie. Let's all go out and eat as a family. Or let's all go like on a neat activity. Or it's let's go on vacation.
I guess the way I tried to phrase this more is like, we work so we can afford subsistence, so we can afford rent, so we can afford grocery. Not that like we
do sustenance.
Yeah, right.
And then your question, like, I'm trying to like get us on the same page. But what's your actual question?
So my actual question is, right, like, besides substance, because like previously we've established that meaning should not come from like relationships alone, right? It could also come from, I don't know, like you mentioned, like your engineering projects. So like outside of the standard thing of I work to provide substance for my family and for me, for groceries, bills, paying college, whatnot. What else should money go to? What else should we work for? What else should we spend our time and resources on?
So here's where I sound a little bit socialist, because what I think happens is that people get so drained at work because they often work jobs that they don't give a shit about. Can I curse on this?
I guess. No, I think we've cursed on this before.
That they don't. I'll just change it, whatever. They often work at jobs that they don't care about, such that it doesn't fulfill their soul, so then they feel drained. And so they go home and they go and like try and fill that hole. And so it doesn't, I don't want to say hedonism because it's not like they're doing cocaine. It's more like they're doing anything to give them like that shot of dopamine to make them feel happy. It's not very meaningful, but it is what happens. Like, I don't think people often go home and watch a movie because they want like a great story and they want to be inspired. It's more like they want to relax. They want like a cheap action movie to just sort of like hang out with the family and just laugh and enjoy. So I think when you ask me like what should people be doing with their time, I think people should not be working. Mm-hmm. I think you should be doing whatever you need to do to not work a job that you hate, which I understand is a very simple thing extremely simple thing to say and extremely difficult to change for some people. But it's not just about. You have to understand, or if you are in that situation, you have to understand that the situation you are in is one where you are spending time in a job that makes you then spend time doing stuff you hate because you hate your job.
But it still sounds kind of job-centered, you know? Like I go home,
no, yeah.
And like I do what I can still do with my leftover resources in terms of like I just try to like hedonistically do something so I can cope with the fact that my job sucks.
So here's an example. Let's not take the weekdays. Let's take the weekends, because I think most people have a pattern of they might watch a movie with their family on a Tuesday night, and then on the weekends they'll go fishing or they'll like go on an activity. So people often join groups. Sort of maybe sometimes there's like an exercise group, like maybe yoga or bicycling, or maybe it's like an organization like charity work, like volunteer work, or I know there's like social groups. Like I guess I shouldn't say Boy Scout now. It's an antiquated term. Or in a P. Hegseth. No, it's not. Scouts. I am a scout. I am an Eagle Scout. I don't know. You're supposed to say you're an Eagle Scout. Whatever. So with scouting, people will often do like merit badge classes over the weekends, and not only does that provide a sense of immediate socialness because you're working with other people that you feel similar to, but you're also doing something that makes you feel like you're being more than just an animal that survives. Right? Because teaching, pedagogy, inherently is like unselfish.
Do you want to quickly explain what pedagogy is?
Well, pedagogy is just like the activity of teaching.
Oh,
like
okay.
It's the technical term for like the study of teaching. So, I think back to when I would teach. Well, actually, I shouldn't take myself because I'm a little not in the usual setting. I know someone who once taught the automotive maintenance merit badge outside of our scout hut. And I think to him, like taking his Saturday off, or using his Saturday to do this activity, and I imagine that in his soul, he was probably feeling good having taught someone else how to do something, taught someone younger than him how to do something. So there has to be a reason why he felt he wanted to do that, and I think that reason, very simple to say, but very difficult to explain, is because he's trying to find meaning, and he's trying to find meaning in helping someone. So I think often, my only point to saying all that is often people will use their weekends to engage in activities that fulfill their idea of community, and at the same time get closer to their soul and do an activity that fulfills their soul.
So the kind of model is basically the work week for subsistence, and the weekend for soul searching and meaning.
Yeah, for like actually living our lives as human beings, for not just surviving as human beings, but living as people.
Living as people. I feel like that's something we always kind of like throw out. But like just as I said, where does the meaning actually come from? What does it mean?
Yeah.
What use does it have? I mean, I feel like it helps because like if I cannot talk about the cause. I can only talk about the effects. Like I feel like if I look at somebody who seems to be doing something meaningful, they're more engaged in their work, they do better, they kind of smile even if they go to bed exhausted. Like I remember I once took a Stanford summer course and it was extremely exhausting, but like every time I went to bed, I like went to bed smiling. I was dead tired, but I was like, hey, that was kind of cool. I kind of interact with interesting people, I had interesting conversations. One more thing I wanted to kind of talk about. So now in my third year of college, I feel like I'm doing more than ever before, but I'm also trying to do more hobbies than ever before. Trying to get into some music production, getting to some digital art. But the thing is, so previously what I did, I was like, okay, the week, I always try to dedicate to schoolwork, and then on my weekend, I will now have like a 3-hour block, and I will permit myself to do nothing but music production. But then over the weekends, suddenly kind of, things build up. There's some, I don't know, stuff from some kind of club, or I have some assignment that I didn't see I still have to do before Monday. So one thing I've kind of now been trying to do is that I just do my hobbies also during the week. Now, obviously, since I don't work 9 to 5, I take college classes, and
college is different.
I'm a lot more flexible. And but do you feel like with how work is sort of changing, how maybe if you're in a global company, maybe sometimes you have work with different time zones. Maybe you just have a flexible working schedule in general. Maybe sometimes you feel like, hey, it's better to now work on something over the weekend. You think it's more vital to really keep it as clear cut as Monday to Friday for subsistence, weekend for, or do you think it could be more flexible?
Well, I mean, there's several different ways. There's many ideas from people way more intelligent than me for how we could restructure our lives concerning work. I like the idea of a 4-day work week, although I don't think it actually changes anything. I just think it makes the effects of having a job more manageable or less noticeable.
One thing
I mean, if you really want to ask what I think should be accomplished or what should be totally changed, is that we should be working as little as possible. We should automate so much stuff. I think farms, if you take a 1-acre field, I don't think it's that big of a challenge to create a robot that does the job of a harvester and have other smaller robots to manage the crop throughout the year. So it's we could take this one sector and automate it, and so people don't have to work that job.
I have 2 thoughts on this. First one, 4-day work week. I'm currently, I don't have any classes on Friday, and it is the best thing ever. Because on the one hand, I can use Friday more to socialize, more to I feel like do something I enjoy, but not because I'm pressured by this is the weekend, I should be relaxing and whatnot.
I love what you just said, because what you just said was, I like it when I'm not pressured to do it, but because I want to do it.
Yeah.
So so joy and satisfaction from life often comes from when it's on our own volition and when we're not told by outside forces, including our own
intrinsic voice, I guess.
Not intrinsic voice, but our own need for survival. That we do it. So it's a sense of freedom.
Mm-hmm. There's this kind of calling, I want to do this, and I do it, although, yeah.
Because sometimes what I've heard from people older than me, when I would mention to them that I'm doing mechanical engineering, or actually no, I've heard this mostly from mechanics. They'll say, if you like cars, don't make it your job, because then you're just going to end up hating it. Because then if you get stressed out by oh my God, I don't know how to fix this, or there's too many cars for me to work on, or it turns out I'm not making enough money on this business, then you're going to feel like a failure, because then you're going to feel like a failure, and then it's going to ruin the thing that you used to love. And we're dancing around this idea that the job inherently makes whatever you do suck. And I know there have to be exceptions to that rule from people who really do like their job, but I think the vast majority of working Americans, and a quick example comes to mind, fast food workers. I don't know if there's a single fast food worker that actually likes the work of fast food. I'm not talking about the pay. I'm not talking about the coworkers. I'm talking about the actual activity of being a fast food worker. Let's take farming. I brought up the farming example earlier, right? I wasn't saying hey, let's replace farmers and let's leave farmers in the streets. I was just saying let's automate farming I imagine there would also be another solution to help people who were displaced from that job, but that's not really my point. But, well, actually, to expound on that, like those people, if we automate farming, that doesn't mean farming like goes away. Like now people don't have to farm because they have to survive, but it's still legal. I imagine it would still be legal to own a farm and for you to work that farm on your own because you enjoy having a farm and you enjoy the work.
I mean, to be fair, I think this is something that we've already done to a great extent. Like, you know, the primary sector, like agriculture, etc., would be like almost everyone, right? Almost everyone would work in agriculture, especially in medieval times. And now we have, you know, a few farmers with massive plots of land and these massive machines, like the massive combine harvesters. And I think so it has already greatly been automated. And then I think also to the second point in terms of the people that just want to do it for joy, I know plenty of people that have a few like different herbs in their garden. Obviously, there are people that take it to the extreme and only live off the stuff they grow themselves. But there are a bunch of people that only say, "Hey, I enjoy growing stuff, and you know, maybe then some part of the year I have my own carrots, I have my own apples, I have my own whatnot."
Yeah.
So I feel like this is a perfect example of where we have already like set aside, I guess, the efficient, like maxed out way to provide subsistence, and also extracted a way to have an accessible form of enjoying this activity in your leisure time.
Yeah, I think what I think I'm getting from this specific topic is that one great indicator of meaning is if you had the freedom to choose to do it, because I think you could do the same activity, and if you're forced to do it, it often doesn't feel meaningful.
Yeah, and I feel like because
actually, I think the negation would be is more true. Where if you're doing it on your own volition, it often feels meaningful.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately because our system is, I guess, accelerating towards getting, for example, it's obviously no longer you walk into a business and you hand them your resume and you kind of got the job, right? It's now like, okay, you have to go through this like long, arduous experience of what did you do in high school, what did you sometimes do in middle school to get into college, and then what kind of internships did you get, and then with what kind of internships, what kind of master program,
Well,
what
I don't think that was still present in like the 90s. We were just doing it with phone calls and unpaid internships.
No, it's definitely, I think, a lot better in some senses now, but I do see like a lot of my friends that I also met for like summer schools at Stanford at Harvard, they basically grinded their high school years to work on projects like, I don't know, a community bakery or some other like a non-profit that they really just did as a resume booster, and all of them died immediately after they went to college. So I feel like this is kind of stupid, you know? Like, I get that we want to appear as if we were so intrinsically motivated that we wanted to do all of this, but I feel like right now it's too much geared to just look good on a resume or at college.
Yeah, that's something else that I wanted to touch on. I remember I made this really dumb point with your friend Evan, which was like, hey Evan, here's a small philosophical point that I was thinking of earlier, which is like, I think you can make an argument that everything you do is selfish. Like, I eat because I want to eat, therefore like it makes me feel good to eat. Or I helped my friend because I think that my friend might help me in the future, and if I don't help him, then he won't like me. So the optimal solution is to help him. And then what he said back was like, then that just means you do stuff because you want to do it. And it's like, so the reason why I brought up that point is because I often, like, I'm going to sound socialist again, where like I often feel like a lot of the choices that people make in life are not choices that they would make given other circumstances. I came to Georgia Tech because I wanted to evolve my skills and knowledge for engineering. Like, I wanted to build better robots, in one phrase, I guess. I know some other people that just did really well in high school, like they were valedictorians, and they were like, Georgia Tech is good, I'll go there, and then here's a key asterisk, and then I'll get a good job. It's like like so much of our life is geared around getting a job. Why? Because that's what we need money to survive, to get the nice things that we want. So do we actually want... It's almost like we want these things. We want to travel, we want a decent car, we want a family and a house to live in, and we want all those things, and we don't want a job. So we do the job because we want those things. So we're being coerced to make a decision that we don't want to make because we want these other things.
Although I feel like still people kind of do not know what they want from life. I think in the past it was a lot easier to just make room for your hobbies. Like for example, if you worked on a farm, stuff doesn't grow because you make it grow. Obviously you have tools like taking care of it, harvesting, removing bugs and other pesticides, but you have a lot of downtime as well. And I feel like nowadays, if you wanted to work 24/7, you could. I mean, obviously you've got physical limits, but otherwise...
But virtually.
Yeah, virtually, yeah. You could virtually work around the clock and aggregate as much money as possible. But
or you could set up bots on your computer system to like run algorithms for you that somehow generate money.
Right, and then you could do something else, right? I feel like right now people... Like there's this one guy in the student foundation, and he basically, I've had a talk with him, he's like, oh yeah, I just want to take... Like he's very much overemployed, even as a first year. Which I find very interesting. And he basically mentioned to me, I just really want to retire when I'm 50. And I've had a conversation with my dad about this, because like my dad always wanted to retire around 50. So what do you do if you want to retire around 50? Well, you work like hell to accumulate the most amount of capital so you can retire at 50, right? But now the problem is, now my dad turned 50, had enough money to retire, but because he spent all this time working, he doesn't know what to do except for work.
Yeah.
Work is this one thing. Obviously, there's family and church, which he's very involved with. And he's been a great dad. He's really shaped me into the person that I am today. But like, he doesn't know what to do with his time except for work.
So I want to bring up this guy, Chris McCandless, again. I remember reading Chris McCandless. I remember reading John Krakauer's book on Chris McCandless, Into the Wilds, in high school. Terrible book. Guy does not know how to structure. He's not presenting a story, which is fine. You don't actually have to present like a narrative of a life. But it's more like he's presenting an expose, as if like you took a newspaper column about this guy's story and you just made it very, very long. But he keeps bouncing around the timeline, and it's like it's so convoluted. The movie's a lot better if you want to know anything about Chris McCandless. And Chris McCandless, like, graduated college, and there's a funny story about like he took some BS classes at the very end. He actually graduated from Emory, and he read a lot of Henry David Thoreau and some other, not romantic, but it's transcendental literature. Basically fell in love with nature, saw his parents' shitty relationship, and saw the life that they lived, like new cars and going to galas and being fake and going to dinners and being fake, and he said, like, that's not the life that I want to live, and I especially don't want to go to college just so I can get a job, just so I can turn it to my parents. So he took his crappy, I think it was like a 78 Datsun B series, not the truck, like a 3BC, I'm trying to think of the name for it, doesn't matter, and he just drove. He had $20,000 in his college fund that he sent to a charity, just said, like, I don't need this money, and took whatever he had in his wallet, I guess, and just went west. He ended up going to Nebraska and being a farmhand for a while. He abandoned his car, started hitchhiking all over the place, kayaked through the Colorado River, worked in Los Angeles for a while, and then finally made his way up to Alaska. And spent some time in nature, but made some mistakes and eventually died in Alaska. So the reason why I bring him up is because he is an example of someone who recognized the fallacy of the American dream. And I don't even think, I think it's a poor thing to call it the American dream, because I think other people live the American dream across the world, which is like, if you go to school, if you do good in school, you get a good job, and then you get a good family, and then you die. I don't think that is a very meaningful life. I think you can get meaning from a job. I think there are some people, I know as an engineer, I can relate to some engineers for like Nissan, and like the people who developed the GTR or the GT86. Like, I bet those people were very prideful to have built a car. But I think there are only some positions in the workforce where people can genuinely be creative and gain meaning from that creation, or gain meaning from being part of something larger than yourself. And his story is so inspiring to me, because at no point through his journey was he really ever like unsatisfied. Like, and I only read the book and watched the movie, so maybe I'm biased, right? I didn't walk the whole way with this guy, but he was able to experience life that to so many other people looked like unstable, right? He was basically homeless. I mean, he was just walking around with a backpack on him and raggedy shoes and raggedy clothes, and he didn't even like. There's another story of like how he was told by his boss at McDonald's to wear socks to work, and like he didn't need like these creature comforts to live his life. Like, you don't need a new car. You probably don't even need a car. You don't need fancy clothes. You don't need a big house. You just need to do whatever it is that you want to do. And for Chris, it was like, all I want to do right now is I just don't want to become my parents. So I'm just going to drive out there and do something else. And then he worked on a cornfield in Nebraska. And then he kayaked the Colorado River. And then he hung out with these two rubber tramps in their RV. And he did this and he did that. And he saw the world. And there's a lot of meaning, I think. Well, okay. Having a job and taking part in the American dream is not the only way that you have to go about life. We should make it easier for people to live life and not being homeless in the same way Chris McCandless was, because that's very extreme. Mm-hmm. Like, let's be real. What Chris McCandless done, you have to be a unique person to do what Chris McCandless did and like be okay like sleeping in the rain some nights.
I mean, this kind of brings me back to the statement that we've kind of discussed just before starting the recording. It's like, if the goal is experience, then everything you do is a win.
Yeah, so I think I brought that up with one of your friends at one of your dinner parties, which are so fascinating. The idea of making my own dinner at someone else's apartment, I just truly enjoy. Which was like, I said to him, like, we already know that we don't exist in the past. Only our memories exist in the past, and the past. I think I know what I said. The past doesn't exist. Only memories exist. We don't have any idea of the future. We can only make a prediction. So the only actual moment in which we do exist, in which we have like any agency or any ability to feel joy, is in the present. So you should always do what you should do to feel, not to feel. Well, what I said in that moment was to feel good in the present. And his first thought was like, well, like, why don't you just do drugs and like be like very hedonistic? And that genuinely made me think, because it was like, I hadn't actually fleshed out like how do you smush together the idea that the probability that you die tomorrow exists, but it's very low. So you have to constantly be creating a 10-year plan while always being comfortable with the idea that you're going to die, that you might die tomorrow. And what you say is like if the point of life is experience, then any experience you have is a win. I think there are some experiences that I almost want to say that like are too painful. Like, I know I would never want to go to prison. I understand that like being in prison is an experience. Like, it is a path through life. But I often think that it would take too much time away, and I'm thinking like extreme, like 5 or 10 years. It would take too much time away from the other experience that I could have had in life, that like it makes it not worth it. Plus, the experience that you could have in prison, whether it's very boring and you're just maybe like studying all the time, or it's extremely violent where like you're getting beat up, or like you might work out, I guess. There's less meaning to be had in that experience than another experience that you could have. So I like, and plus like if we're saying any experience, then like bird watching versus like heroin are still experiences, but I think bird watching is more of a win than heroin.
Now, to clarify, I did not quite agree with the statement, but I find it interesting because often I feel like I've kind of missed out on opportunities, on like the standardized. This is what you should go for. This is the good opportunity, right? And because I've been very bad with time management in the past. So I got like the second grade opportunity instead. But I think sometimes, especially if you feel like, okay, there's not this official pressure to be like the number one, that you can experience different things. Like, for example, I've just realized that since I do look to intern in fall, that like for all the like classical great internships, that the applicationship deadline is already passed. so I'll likely not be able to get one of those. Which is a bit stupid on my side, right? Like that is objectively not good if I just want to have like a good experience so I can put that on a resume to make more money, to provide more substance.
So
right?
you're saying like the experiences can have like sub-purposes besides just them being like fulfilling to your own soul? You're saying,
I mean,
like,
maybe not the
because
experience.
what I heard was that like you're using this internship not as something like, hey, cool, I'm interested in that, but also as something to put on your resume.
Well, that was what I did in the past a lot. Like I worked at KPMG, I worked at Amazon, I'm about to work at Amazon, I worked at Mercedes, and I feel like I already, like, if you go into the job market, I know that the kind of experiences that I want, in terms of like more specialized roles, or also just roles that allow me to accumulate more capital, for that it's definitely helpful to have these names on my resume, right? But
Okay.
now I already have these names on my resume, and now I feel like I'm kind of free to
I
do
see.
something that does not have to be like a good resume booster.
You
right?
did the same thing that your dad did, which was like you worked, and then like you finally found a moment to like exercise your own purpose in
only
your soul,
that-
and then you don't know what to do.
Basically, only that I'm not 50 yet, so I still have some
Yeah,
time, right?
yeah.
No,
obviously.
actually, I've been trying to like use this entire semester to kind of figure out what I want to do with my life, right? So I'm more involved with philosophy.
See, this
so-
is why like I feel so extremely lucky to have like gained consciousness when I was 14 to go like I just want to do whatever I want to do with cars.
Yeah.
So like there's so many people that just go like, well, I guess I want to get a good job, so I'll do X, and then they turn 50 and it's like, well, I guess I don't know what the fuck,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna do now with retirement.
So I guess a good takeaway is obviously, try to focus on getting a good job at some point, right? Or like at least to have the money to do what you want to do, but definitely already start thinking about what is there more to life than
working a job.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like a person like Chris McCandless doesn't need a job to feel fulfilled in life.
Right.
So like,
But maybe you do.
Step away from that big promotion or this big opportunity, this big financial, this career opportunity, and ask yourself like, is this what I want? Is this what I want to look back on when I'm 50 years old and know that I did this? Or do I want to say like, have spent more time with my family? Or do I want to have like, built this project or done this thing with my house where I've learned a new skill? Like, I think that back in the 50s and 60s there was a very, very strong, the idea that your work was your purpose and that your life revolved around, I don't know, your 40 years at Ford was like the ultimate purpose of your life right beneath God. And I think a lot of people nowadays are waking up, or already have woken up to this idea of like, I don't want to work, what else can I do instead? And such that the main principle guiding their life is, I want to work as little as possible such that I can have the most amount of time to do the things that actually make me happy.
There's this guy I think we should talk to at some point. He's also a guy I met from the philosophy club. And basically, he's the boyfriend of one of the professors at Tech. And he, I think after high school or college or whatnot, he went into the finance sector, accumulated large amounts of capital, and is basically now retired at age 40 and just looks for meaning in life. And on the one hand, it's really like he doesn't seem to be attached to anything. So I feel like if you have just like kind of graduated from this kind of point of, okay, now my life only revolves around getting more cash, to I now search for meaning. It can be incredibly disorientating just because there's so many options to get meaning from, right?
Not only that, but like your brain as a pattern recognizing device, is suddenly has jumped ship from work to now leisure. So that's another point of disorientation, is that like you physically don't know how to think.
Do you think there's a way in education that we could show more people how you could?
I almost think like we should extend college to be like, no, I think we should extend the semesters such that the average workload through a week is much, much lower, such that more people have time to like join clubs that are not resume focused.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the biggest idea in college, the biggest problem with college right now, and to your point of like trying to invoke a better sense of meaning or fulfillment in student souls, is that like student souls are getting sucked because most of the amount of time that they're dedicating in their life is to classwork. And then the summer break hits, or the spring break hits, and they go, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do with my time besides just sleep all day."
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Clash Royale, Instagram.
Yeah, I think extending the semester by 1 or 2 weeks would lead to more breathing space through the week, such that they go, okay, from my 9 to 5 from Monday to Friday, I can get all my work done. I know for certain I can, and then from 5 onward, I'm gonna go to boxing.
Yeah,
that's what I did.
I mean, I do think it requires a bit more structures because not everyone.
Oh yeah.
would fall into that. I think being like very conscientious about your work helps, being scheduled helps. But sometimes we just need, I don't know, like for example, for my biology class, we have, I think, like 4 assignments per week, and all of the assignments are very small, but they're only published like 1 or 2 days before they're due. So they kind of keep you accountable to do something the entire time, which I guess is a way to help you like learn continuously. But it also is really annoying because I'm constantly like terrified of the idea that there's an assignment that I'm missing.
Well, so that's the minor point, right? Is restructuring college as a schedule to give more people time.
And how do you motivate these people to actually spend their time on meaningful things?
That's the major point, which is we have witnessed the mistakes of people older than us. That's my phone, excuse me. Which is they have worked for 40 years without having any time for themselves, and then they retire and they don't know what to do with their life. Instead, we should have a gradual transition that especially starts when we're young in high school and college, and we give them not only the opportunities to further themselves as people who give to society, but people who support society, but also as individuals themselves. If college and society as institutions demand too much from young people, demand too much from the people that they, I guess, control, then they don't allow those individuals the amount of time they need to, I almost want to say like form personalities, mm-hmm. or evolve the sectors of their soul that go towards defining their version of meaning or fulfillment.
Yeah, and then
I think it's way better for a student to take a 12 credit hour semester and like go to 2 clubs and learn an instrument rather than take an 18 credit hour semester purely because they think like, well, I need to take this class to put it on my resume.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair, and I think way too many people at tech, especially because they're motivated by our massive ROI, which is great, I think, kind of don't appear to be like real human beings.
Oh yeah, it's very true. Just walking around.
Yeah. Well, Brad, do you have any ending points you want to end on?
We should watch Marty Supreme sometime.
We should watch Marty Supreme sometime.
Yeah, we've been saying this
Probably
for like 2 weeks now.
I think that
it's about ping pong, right?
You'll figure it out. But I think that Marty Supreme did not win.
Oh wait, is he Timothée Chalamet?
It is with Timothée Chalamet.
Okay, I'm going to say this because I just love discourse. I'm on Timothée Chalamet's side with the whole opera.
Yeah, same.
Debate.
Like
you are
straight up. Like it is just like I love certain types of opera, but other types of opera just suck. You know.
No, it's not even that. It's not even that. That's a different point of like whether or not it sucks or not. My point is that Timothy has a right to an opinion and shouldn't be flamed for his opinion, right? Because why do people care about his opinion? And then the second point is look at how opera and ballet was as a high enriching activity as it was back in like the 1800s when like people like Abraham Lincoln would go to plays, right? Everyone knows he was assassinated at a playhouse, at a theater. And like many people, I think the story is usually about the upper echelon, go to like classical music concerts or go to ballets. And now you compare that to modern day life, people don't usually go to operas or ballets. So like to say that it has dropped in importance is historically accurate.
I also think a lot of people go to like classical music concerts and plays because they think they enjoy it. It's like the kind of people that think they're experts in wine and they convince themselves that they're sophisticated.
That too, yeah.
And as somebody who, I don't consider myself super sophisticated in classical music, although I'm Austrian. But yeah, also, you will not understand this yet. You will understand as soon as we watch it. But the fact that Marty Supreme did not win any Oscars, most Marty Supreme thing ever. I think it's a beautiful story.
Very funny.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll have episodes more regularly, I hope. Brad, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. check us out on wherever we upload these podcasts, I guess.
We haven't figured that out.
We haven't
yet.
figured it out. And on Instagram and Skiles 311 630 for all of our meetings. Alright, see you. I
Thanks.
pray to God my camera didn't run out.
Am I not an interesting person? Would you not want to ask an interesting person a question?
Yeah, no, I should.
What question do you have to ask me then?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, okay, take a sip of your water bottle like a coward so that you have more time to think.
I like having more time to think. This is it more awkward if it's in camera or if it's down here?
I actually don't know. I don't know. I'm very fidgety, so I would have like, I don't want to say a fidget spinner because that's like 22018, but I would get like
I can give you this pepper shaker.
That would be amazing because then I could. That's also a snack. I could also eat that salt shaker. No, wrong one, wrong flavor.
Wrong flavor.
Wrong flavor.
Wrong flavor of salt.
I do like, you know that prank where like you unscrew it and like someone
yeah.
gets all their salt. Yeah. Why is it blue?
I don't know.